So our flow is well and truly on. The chestnut are in full flower, the bramble is in full flower, the nukes are doing well, everything is just booming. So I'll show you a number of little things we're doing at the moment. It's a real mix this week, but I hope you enjoy it. This is what I'm up to. So this is my bottom shed where I keep a little bit of stock. I've got about another 45 hives there to go for next year now. They won't be filled this year. These are the nukes I'm making up at the moment that were painted in the spring. And these are the frames I've got to go in them. What I made the other day, these are our wide frames we buy. And there's our lids, and there's all the partitions we use. It's a real mishmash of bits and pieces. Those are my old style nukes I used to use. But I will still be using them because I haven't got many of these left, which is good news. So I'm getting through them quickly. But now I'm putting these together so that I can go to my apiaries, do my splits, and the flow is still on. So the bees that are foraging are not going to really lose out on gathering nectar because they're the ones that are foraging right now. I know some of them will die in the next week, but I'm only taking a small amount of nurse bees on the frames to make my nukes with. So I'll show you how I put my nukes together in preparation. So I'll just run through this. These are so brand new, they haven't even been put in use yet. They were painted up over the winter, so remember we reinforced these lugs with metal, and these then screw through to the handles to get a really good nuke to hold. But first of all, we put in our landing strip, and that goes into here. You can see where it slides in. There's numerous ways you can have this and numerous options, but I prefer it this way up, so it slides in there. Now these do jam up a bit, but the whole thing is we don't mind that because we prefer to actually have them really stiff. You can put Vaseline in, but what's the point in moving them? Because once you've got them set to the right distance, you just foam them up when you want to move them. So you put your foam in, just like that, poke it in there. I haven't got my hive tool with me, but that's how we basically put the foam in. And then once you're out and about, there's nothing more to do when you put your bees in there. And when you want to release it, you just do that and the bees are free to go. But there's just a little bit of foam to block them in. So we are preparing our bees for the winter now. And what am I going to put in this nuke? So the nuke's going to grow, obviously, when I give it a queen in a week. So I want to give it some room to grow. But if it goes cold, I also don't want to make it too big. For instance, I don't want to have three frames in a small box. So in this configuration, the nuke that will travel out with me in readiness for going to the apiary, for a start, we give it one partition. Okay, one partition there. That'll go in like that. Next, we have two partitions in the middle that will go out to the apiary, and these will come out, and those go in the hives that we take the 3 frames from, and the rest is foundation. So I grab 3 frames of foundation. So here's my 3 frames. 1, 2, 3. So in this box I will have 3 frames of bees and brood and 2 frames of foundation for the bees to build on. Sometimes I have a extra partition in here, but because I'm making these splits a little bit earlier this year, I'm happy to remove the partition and put a frame of foundation instead for 2 reasons. Firstly, because the bees are going to grow so quick when they get away, and there'll still be a bit of a flow running as they start to grow. I want to give them that room, and I don't think it's going to be cold. Secondly, I haven't got enough partitions, because if I put 2 partitions in here and 2 in the hive, that's 4 partitions in one operation. That becomes an awful lot of material. So for now, I've got more frames of foundation than I have partitions, so it's logical to do that. So let me run through that again. So this partition stays in the box right until the queen is back and mated and growing. And if I find that they filled these extra, just imagine that these are all going to be full of bees and brood. Okay, that's your bees and brood. That's a partition, and these 2 are foundation. If she's filled those 2 as well, and or I'm feeding well and they're growing well, what I'll do is I'll take out this partition, I'll give it a 6 frame, and that's what I want. I will really want 6 frames anyway, so these 6 frames are going to be full of food for the winter, because now that's what we're aiming for. Now we know that after this next 2 weeks, when our flow is finished, there is going to be nothing really around, and we're going to have to start feeding. We won't have to feed pollen for the first 3 to 4 weeks, because there is so much pollen in the hives at the moment. But what I'm thinking of doing this year is when we get to week 3 or week 4 after the flow has stopped, I'm thinking of giving a pollen sub this year, just to see how it affects my nukes, just to see if it can augment that brood, so that when the ivy flow starts in about the 2nd week of September, I'm hoping that that will boost those bees before the ivy flow starts. Because what I want to do is, when I make these nukes up, if they're strong in the middle of August, and I've got enough queens, I'll split them all again. But it's only 5 weeks away, and I want to make sure that these are going to be good enough to go through the winter. Some will be strong enough, some won't, but it doesn't take long to fill a box with bees when they're really growing. You only need to have 1 hatching of 4 frames of brood, or 3 sides of brood, sorry, and you're away. They just explode. But I've got to keep that momentum going. I've got to keep them strong. So then, on top of that, I put my lid and a plastic. Obviously we have a plastic there, so that when we're ready to feed, and we want to put a feeder on, all we have to do is literally open the box up. They stick down, so this plastic actually really helps, because it stops the bees, it stops them propellizing so much between the plastic roof, between the poly roof. I'll find you a poly roof. Bear with me. If I didn't have this plastic on, and you put it like that, you can do that, it's fine, but often they propellize between the two. So if you put a plastic on first, we call it a plastic, then you put your roof on after that, it does 2 things. It stops the bees propellizing between the two, so you can always take the roof off. You can look inside without bothering the bees, see how they're doing, because they'll be above the frames, beneath the frames, and above the frames, but so you can see them, and running around, and you can have a quick look if you need to. You can fold this back when you want to feed when you want, without disturb. All you do is do that, and put your feeder on. You just put your feeder on like that, just above the plastic, as simple as that. Then we use an eek, which we're making some new ones, and the eek goes, it's a square frame of wood, the eek sits on top of there, and then we use an aluminium seal, like this. That then can go on top of there, and when it gets a little bit cooler in the autumn, that then helps hold on the heat. So you can see with a simple eek, this is so universal to feed. You don't need to buy the expensive feeder, because the problem with the expensive feeder, it doesn't insulate the syrup above the box. If you use this, the syrup is directly above the bees. And where does the heat come from? The core of the hive. And the heat travels up and it keeps the feed warm, and they take it up a lot easier. If you put syrup in a feeder above the bees, they will take it, but if you use a polystyrene feeder, you're using material that's made to insulate. So it insulates the heat from the syrup, and sometimes they just don't take it up because it's not warm. But anyway, that's what we do. On goes the lid. Now, this is what I wanted to discuss with you. Nothing rocket science, but I always have this problem where, you imagine this is in my truck and it's bouncing around a bit and it's a bit of movement because my truck is bumpy at the back. Sometimes the lids do this. Not this one, but sometimes the lids just can pop off like that and they're gone in the wind. So I was thinking, how can I stop my lids doing that? So I tried taping them down. I tried using a bit of string, a cord around them. You know what the easiest thing is? Is this. It's a cutout from an inner tube from a tractor tyre. This just goes on over the base like this. Pretty simple stuff. It ain't rocket science. If you can see that, it just goes over there, and I stretch the top over, and that is completely fixed. And it costs me nothing. Just a little bit of time to cut them up. You'll see from this clip I'm just showing you now how I've got this big tractor tyre inner tube. Just cut it into strips with some decent scissors and it cuts really well. But that is how I take my nukes to my apiary. So I'm not blocking off the vents underneath. I can leave this wherever I want, and when I'm ready to use it, the simple thing is you can just do this. You don't even have to take the whole thing off. You can jam the rubber right there, look, so it's ready when you need it. and you can open up your Nuke again. These are a bit sticky because they're brand new and they're still gripping for the paint. But it's as simple as that. You just open up when you want, and when you finish, you just put the roof back on, you know? So that's a way of me getting my Nukes to the yard without them blowing off. And when I see the difference, I can relax now. I'm going to drive slowly. I just know that they're going to be, all the lids are going to be on. So it's pretty easy stuff to do. A little adaptation. That's what we do in beekeeping. You have to be a little bit dynamic and do the best you can with what you have. You use what you have, and it's the only way to do it. You can't be buying expensive stuff. I mean, I've thought about getting those straps that go around just to have a click strap, but I'd need probably 200 straps every year because they don't last long, they go brittle. These will last maybe a season or two. It's a temporary fix because when these are in the yard for the winter, I'll probably take them all off and store them because they will obviously degrade in the weather, but they'll last a year or so, and when they do, you just replace them. But it means it's another thing I'm not worried about. Long term, I'm looking to change my truck now because I've realised now that I'm doing less and less gardening and less of all things like that. Really, I need a closed-in vehicle, and a big van is going to be ideal for me. So I'm going to probably look to change up this winter if I can. If not, it'll be the following year. But it's just an evolution. I used to do a lot more garden maintenance and mowing and stuff like that. But to be honest, through various reasons why, and obviously me becoming a full-time professional beekeeper, my truck is becoming less and less the right thing for what I need. Firstly, because I was always losing things out the back of it, like lids off Nukes. But now I'm doing less, and as from next year, I will be solely dependent on beekeeping, apart from a few other things like YouTube and a few little bits and pieces that come in every now and then. I'm going to be doing mainly bees, so I need to basically try to change my mode of transport. And the other thing as well is whenever you go anywhere with supers in the back, for instance, you stop somewhere at someone's house, or you come home and forget you've got an apiary next door to your hive, your supers are full of bees in 10 seconds. It's unbelievable. Having a closed-in vehicle takes that all away. So there's various reasons why I'm going to be changing my truck, but it's a big purchase for me. It's a big change, but it has to come because I'm no longer humping mowers around, loads of gravel, cement, all that kind of stuff. That's finished. I've got a little bit to finish off for a client before the end of the season, but when that's done, that is it. And it's just a logical evolution. Having a closed-in truck is a real bonus. I'm just cleaning out a few of our super frames that we use to collect honey in. We do this every now and again when we get a build-up of frames that either had pollen in. Every now and again when you put a super above the brood nest, often they do put a bit of pollen up in the top. Not much, but if it doesn't come out after 1 year, the bees tend to propolize it up. And then you get less and less honey in that super as you want to use it as the time goes on. So what we do is we basically scrape off the old wax, that gets melted down. You see there, you get a nice collection at the bottom. And then we pressure wash the frames. And they end up nice and clean like this. So they go straight back in another super. When we're ready, straight back in there, and then they're built on again. The beauty of these Baticad is you can take them apart, take them out of circulation, give them a clean them all off, and then there's no re-waxing. You just put them back in the hives. And actually the second time round, they do take them even better. Not that they don't take them at all, but to build brand new plastic frames, you really do need a good strong flow. And once they've been built once, they're like almost propolized a little bit, and the bees accept them better. But for us, it's a really good thing because all our honey supers here that we are virtually all out of at the moment because we're flat out, when the bees are flat out and it's just the start of the next flow and all the supers are on, we're basically just getting ready to use the last ones that need cleaning up. So when they're all cleaned up, we'll be done and dusted, but that'll be it. That's the main lot done for now, and we'll be back tidy. All we have to do then is when all the supers come back, there'll be probably more that need cleaning over the winter, but we'll put them aside for another cleaning. So it's a constant circulation of frames that need cleaning, constant work, but no matter what material you have, whether it's wooden frames or plastic frames, you always have to do something like that. So this seems to work well for us, and we don't use plastic frames in the brood nest, we tend to use wooden frames for that because we find they're better. But for the honey supers, it seems to work really well. This is the kind of thing I'm really talking about. The other frame I just showed you before was an old frame and just not filled properly, so it was a good opportunity to clean it out. Whereas this is the classic pollen in the frame. You can see I've just scraped off half this, well, a little bit of this for the end to show you. You see we've got wax moth that's gone in here and started to proliferate on the old pollen, but you can actually see, if you look at, you probably can't see it with this magnitude on the film, but there's actually pollen mites in here that actually do eat this pollen. And the pollen mites do clean off a lot of the pollen over the winter, and that's why when you shake out old frames, you get like a powder coming out, and that's actually pollen mites that do that. So they're actually a good thing, but at the end of the day, they never get it all out. So we scrape off the surface, and then we just pressure wash them out, and they're clean and ready to go again. It's the only real way you can get the pollen out of the frames quickly and efficiently.